It's time to share my journey into the world of healing, intuition, and spiritual discovery. As I find my place as a healer, psychic, and medium, I'm here to share my experiences and insights in hopes of breaking down barriers between different spiritual perspectives. Whether you're curious about energy work, looking to deepen your understanding, or just exploring your own path, this podcast offers stories, teachings, and connections to help you navigate the space between worlds. I'm Heather, and this is Soulful Wonderings. Are you coming along for the ride? So if you recall, and if you're keeping up, our last episodes were about how my spiritual journey kind of really got started. It started with this mindset class that I was taking, and then I followed up that episode with one about sort of the lessons that I had noticed or taken with me after that class. And now today we're going to move on in the journey with kind of what happened next, I guess you would say. And that's when I really started to develop my gifts. And the truth is, all of this is actually really falling perfectly into my new year, new journey, as well, because at the time that we're recording this or this airing, it's April. And we're in full-on springtime. Things are waking up outside. They're blooming. You're starting to see all the flowers come back alive after our winter. And I feel like that's sort of what was happening for me at the time as well. It was this moment of me really opening up. Some would say it was the moment that my third eye opened. But if that's a little too woo for you, that's okay. We'll come back to that. And you really, you don't have to think about it as a third eye if that doesn't work for you. Because I think, when people hear things like that, sometimes it goes back to that conditioning that we were talking about last time, right? There are many that believe that these gifts aren't gifts at all and that they are not to be considered or to pursue them in any way by someone who is a Christian. And I won't deny that I struggle with that. As I've learned and studied, I'm going to be honest, I'm not so sure that we have the story right as Christians. I'm not saying that it's not partially right. I'm not saying that there aren't validities and things like that. It just feels like that it's just way bigger than we tend to make it in the Christian world, and that quite frankly, there are some things we've been lied to about. But that is another episode. I don't want to get into that part of it right now. And the truth is, a lot of those realizations came much later as I was starting to work through my conditioning and kind of really decide what I believed about things. So let's table that for now and let's stick with where we are now, and that's our gifts. And so we talked about, several of the girls in this mindset class had these abilities and they would talk about them. One girl was a medium. So of course she saw things, she knew things, she was psychic. And like I said before, again, I was fascinated. I'm going to say it again because of how it was for me then. She was saying those things out loud, and that was just such a different environment for me. But she was just very open about it, and she was very willing to share those things and things that had happened in her past and the things that she did or experienced. And I have to be honest, I'm not even sure at the time that I was completely aware of just how much I instantly gravitated to these people. But it was an absolute instant, magnet type situation. And, looking back on it, I'm wondering, I wonder if I pestered them. I didn't mean to, but I wanted to talk to them about everything. Okay, everything. I mean, come on, haven't we all done that? I think we have. I remember doing it in high school for sure, but even as an adult, you meet that super cool person and you just you can't get enough of them, because you want to be as cool as they are. And in your mind, at least, you're not. And you may even find yourself beginning to sort of act like them or dress like them. Or, you just basically start to kind of emulate them. You know what I mean? You think, if I do that, then I will be cool too, right? And again, for me, coming from this background of Christianity, there are things that just weren't done in my world. So suddenly, I guess they just seemed a little more okay to do. And I liked a lot of these new things that I was seeing. So I wanted to try some of those things on for myself. Anyway, I think this may be part of another story as well, but the point is, I found myself, I was like a little sponge around them, okay? And I was trying not to be the, creepy, stalker, weird friend. You know what I'm talking about. Don't act like you don't. But so not creepy, stalker like, just interested, right? So it ended up that I guess I felt like I was spending every chance I got to be with them. And I found myself asking, how? How do you do this? I wanted to know, and I felt like a child that kind of had no idea where to even start. I mean, like, I know there's Google, but I'm not even sure that I knew what to search. And I think I didn't want to end up down a rabbit hole. I mean, we know how the internet can be, right? There's all these stories, you kind of get lost in all the articles and who's telling you what, and maybe it's all a little different and you're not really sure who to follow. So I think I just wanted someone that was more tangible. These people were in front of me and I can ask them questions. Where with Google, you're down a rabbit hole, right? And the amazing thing was she was actually very gracious in being willing to teach me. I can't remember now if she had done that before or not. I think she had maybe helped friends, but I can't remember if she had done it as a, sort of that class or coach type setting or not. Basically, I don't remember if she had done it to make money or not. I can't remember now. I may have been one of the first for her to do that for, sort of a class. I will teach you this thing, which is actually pretty cool, right? And to be honest, I was just grateful that she was willing to do it. So, she agreed to help me out. We set our time. And of course, me being me, before we even met, I'm thinking, how in the world do you teach this? I've already jumped off on that. How are you doing this? How do you show somebody to do it? Because if y'all haven't figured it out yet, the unknown and me just, we're not the greatest of friends. So I was also a little nervous. I mean, this was literally drawing me to it. Like I said, the magnet thing before. And all I could think was, of course, immediate things like imposter syndrome. What if I couldn't do it? What if I was a poser? You know what I mean? And I had never, at least consciously, tried anything like this before. What if I didn't understand? So of course all that was coming up. But by the same token, I was so excited. I was like a kid at Christmas. I could not wait to meet with her. So the day finally came and we get started, and she's just guiding me through, things like, okay, close your eyes. What do you see? And of course I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, do you see people? Do you see sort of gray blobs? Do you see nothing? And then, oh, okay, let me try again. Let me really focus. It was gray blobs. Okay, moving on. So as we went on, I kind of relaxed more and more and was understanding, or having a better understanding of sort of what she was doing. I was really starting to feel safe with her and know that, she's not going to do anything crazy with me. This isn't going to be some crazy, insane, demonic, or people talk about that's what this gift is. So it wasn't going to be that. It was all really pretty normal, at least in the context of what we were doing, because she was really just kind of evaluating and showing me some basics of how all this worked. So she would show me how to take notice of things I would see or things I would hear as we worked. To be honest, to me, the basis of it seemed to be about meditating and kind of just allowing my mind to be open. And then the big one that sometimes continues to be a thing for me was trusting then what I saw or what I heard or, whatever message I was getting. And look, I don't know that it's necessarily that simple. Okay. Now that I've been doing it for a while, maybe it seems that simple, and I'm not trying to detract from the gift at all. But at the core of it, that's just what it seemed like to me. Get your mind clear and then trust what you see. That was kind of the basis of it. Now, her opinion was that everyone has gifts, and it's just that many of us basically ignore them or never develop those gifts, or there's those folks that they just don't know what the heck it is. Honestly, many of them kind of chalk it up to a God moment, which I think is terribly ironic. Because y'all, I swear, almost every time I meet someone that I end up sharing this part of myself and sharing what I do, they end up telling me some story about something that's happened to them. It's usually something, someone came to them in a dream. And, of course, they're not really realizing what that is. So it's as if when they hear me say it, there's an appreciation for the validation that they just got. Someone else does this too, right? I'm not crazy. And I think, maybe there's a little bit of a connection there that, oh my gosh, you do that too. That's so neat. And of course, I really love it. So I love when people tell me that. I love kind of seeing that little spark that goes off in their eyes when they go, oh, that's really cool. So this is normal. And let me be sure that I'm clear at this point. Even with all this, I'm going to say it, I was still skeptical. Okay. I had seen people on TV do this, right? But that could be TV magic. I mean, my husband and I have been around TV for literally decades, especially between the two of us. Decades we worked in TV. So I'm aware that there's lots of ways to do that and to make TV magic. But I had seen this girl, my teacher, I had seen her do it. So that was a little more real, right? And I trusted it a little more. But how many of you've thought it could still be a hoax, right? Remember that conditioning that we were talking about? We've been told as a society to believe that this is either a hoax or, again, demonic, right? But there was this one moment that really made it hit home for me. It made me realize this was real because the way she handled it, she couldn't fake it. Do you know what I'm saying? And she didn't lead me to an answer. You know what I mean? How someone will sort of lead you and then later you go, wait, was that really me? Or did they kind of guide me to that answer? No, she asked a question and I had to answer it. I had to come up with an answer. So there was really no way for her to fake that. Let me explain. She said, okay, I want you to hold your hand out with your palm up. Okay, hand up. Now what? She says, tell me if anything happens. And of course I'm thinking, shit, what's going to happen? I mean, you feel a little vulnerable, y'all. I mean, I had my eyes closed and I knew I was home and I was safe and all those things, but it was still a little bit, what's going to happen? So I took a deep breath and then I felt it. You know that feeling when someone runs their finger across your palm, especially when they do it really lightly and it makes it kind of tickle and then it itches? I felt that. But here's the thing. It was actually pretty subtle. And if I hadn't been focused on my hand, I'll admit I may not have realized it. At the time, okay, you have to put that in context that I was just starting out and just starting to understand all this. So I probably would have just kind of blown it off as, the temperature changed in my hand and now it itches. But I also had, that minor moment of, what the fuck? And then as I realized, oh, is this what she means? Oh. So I tell her, I say, it feels like something just tickled my hand. And she goes, oh, okay, good. Good? Wait, what? And look, I don't want to divulge too much, okay? Even though you guys have no idea who this person is, I want to respect her, and I don't want to kind of say too much about her, I guess. But anyway, she has someone on the other side that she can connect with. So she basically sent this person to touch my hand, and that was it. That was the moment. It had happened to me. It wasn't someone else explaining it to me. I had no other explanation for it. And again, it's not like she led me to that or told me what was going to happen. So in that moment, it's like it just clicked. Or another thing that was kind of interesting was that it was a weird emotion to process. You're knowing that this person on the other side had done that, knowing that I had recognized it, but I wasn't really freaked out. That's the thing. It felt normal. It felt like something that was supposed to happen. Maybe almost I've known this all along, all my life. I just was never awake to it. So anyway, so I just kind of went, okay. And my brain told me that it was all okay. And I kind of processed all that kind of in those few seconds, really. And then I just knew I wanted more. So next, in our meeting that we had, we were going through a bit of kind of how messages work and what's happening, I guess, when the messages are happening. So for me, we discovered that my messages tend to be images or feelings more than anything else. Those images that I would get, but they meant something. So they either meant something to me or to the person that I was trying to help. So I have a client or a friend or whatever in front of me, and I'm trying to connect to someone on the other side for them. Then the image I'm giving is either going to mean something to me or it's going to mean something to my friend. Often feelings that I would get, those weren't my feelings. If I suddenly felt, sadness or maybe just immense peace or immense love or something like that, those were the feelings that this person on the other side was giving me so that I could then convey that to someone else. So she kind of helped me break down how to do that, how to understand that, how to ask questions so that you can start to break that message down and kind of know what it means so that you can then deliver it to the person, like I said, that you're trying to help. So we started going through all of those things, and just when I tell you immediately, there were things that started to make sense for me. Anyway, before I knew it, it was time for a session to end, and I had homework. It was time to practice meditating and kind of dropping into that place where I was open and practice how to ask questions and how to understand what I was being told. And let me tell you, it was one of the first times in my life that I was excited to do homework. And as much as I was still fighting my conditioning at the time, there was just nothing about this that felt wrong to me. I was kind of saying that earlier. I just felt comfortable and strangely like I was home, if that makes sense. Again, not to mention all the many, many things in my life that had happened that were starting to come back to me, that then they started making sense. That I started going, oh my God, this has been happening all my life. Right? But like so many others, I blew it off or just kind of said, oh, well, that happened. Can't explain it. Moving on. And I couldn't help but wonder too, I wonder how different my life would have been had I acknowledged it then, had I explored it then. But I guess I'm not sure it was time yet. Maybe I wasn't ready for it yet. I won't deny though, when I finally did, wake up in this way, I felt a little behind. I felt like I had time to make up, because I'm older than most of these other people in these classes, and a lot of the other people that I meet that do this. So I had this sense of urgency, I think, to figure this out and to dive into this. So obviously, I continued to be a sponge. And every time these girls started offering any sort of class or anything that was involved with development and things like that, I dove in head first. So I'm sure you can imagine that this particular story, there were a lot of takeaways and a lot of things that I learned. I actually had to kind of choose which ones I want to talk about first. So I hope that you will join me in the next episode where I'm going to break down some of those takeaways and hopefully give you some ideas of things you can do that may help you as well. Thanks so much for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and that it has helped you move forward in your journey in some way. Make sure and like and rate and subscribe and, do all those things for our podcast because it really helps us out. Links and other important things you need to know will be in the show notes. And if you have ideas of topics you'd like to hear about or questions you want us to answer, you can drop those on the Soulful Wanderings page on either Facebook or Instagram, or you can drop us an email. Again, check the show notes for all that. If you're interested in theta healing or reading or just more spiritual topics, head over to our website, soulfulwanderings.com. In the meantime, take care of yourself and each other. Until next time.